This time I would like to call the Hardin County Board of Education meeting to order. And first item is reopening of discussion, and I think Superintendent Morgan wants to tell us about maybe a slight change in plans or some changes.
So we do have our online learning academy, and then we do have in-person instruction. So the online learning academy, we started with, instead of having every school to do their own, because we have some schools with like 15 students who are going to do the online learning academy. We have other schools that have over 100 students doing the online learning academy. So that is working out well with some adjustments for preschool through 8th grade. When it came to the high schools, we have met multiple times, and we had a leadership retreat, and basically the high school principals and counselors, after working multiple hours of how to make the online academy successful and in-person instruction successful, they shared that they were not having a lot of success with how many teachers had to be pulled out for online instruction, and then how to continue instruction for the rest of the student body. The struggles really came from being able to do what we are most proud of in Hardin County, which is all of the various opportunities we offer to our students. So our AP classes, our dual credit classes. On the other extreme, we have classes for students who need additional assistance, and those schedules were not allowing that. And one of the things that was shared is our students want to get back to school. They want to be in with their friends, they want to be in with their teachers, they want that relationship, that personal connection. But with the way we were having to set up classes, they would be in approximately 2 classes a day, each for 3 hours with our original plan. And we decided very quickly with that thought that that's probably not what the students are thinking when we say we're bringing you back to school, that they would be in 2 classes a day for 3 hours each day. So out of great respect for our leaders that we have, they shared some other suggestions and ideas, and that is what I've asked them to come and bring tonight. So we have brainstormed. We have been meeting with our reopening meetings. Instructional Services Department has been working incredibly hard to make sure we are doing right by our students. 1, taking into safety and health concerns, and then 2, how to continue with a curriculum that prepares them for life. So I'm going to ask Mr. Sutton if he would come up and speak to this, and then some of the principals. And again, this is discussion. We don't have a decision made tonight, but our principals and counselors need some direction of, are we moving in the right direction, or do we need to be thinking differently? So I wanted them to have the opportunity to share this evening, and for you all to be able to ask questions, because I know you are getting a multitude of emails in your homes of how we need to return. So I just wanted you to hear this thought process from our high school people. So I greatly appreciate them being here and the hard work. They are here tonight. Their counselors who are working incredibly hard are not here tonight, but please know there's a lot of work that has already gone into all the various plans that we have looked at. So, Mr.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak on this tonight. I want to share some data up on the board here with you. If y'all can take a look at that, those numbers behind you. Elementary school 1,008, middle school 672, high school 859, for a total as of today 2,539 students that have chosen the online academy. Now you're going to ask, how did we come up with that number? We actually made an attempt to contact every student in our district, all 14,300 students. After making contact with those families, these were the students that told us we need an online learning situation. Maybe that's how we learn best through NTI. Someone said we have some major medical concerns not to be able to come back to an in-person learning opportunity. And so that's where we came up with that number. That's 17.7% of our population. That means about 11,800 students want to come back for in-person instruction, and that's about 82.3% that want to be back. So I want you to understand where our numbers have come from. They're very specific data on phone calls made home to parents. So now you're going to ask yourself, how do we educate these students in an online academy that we've never, I guess, simulated before? What does that look like? What does that sound like? How do we meet their needs? For elementary school, we met with the elementary school principals, and we actually took those 1,008 students and started thinking just like we would for an elementary school. We started giving teachers a class load of 25 students. And we actually started pulling teachers from schools and assigning them to the online academy. So we've done that. We've communicated with those teachers. We're going to train those teachers on how to do this online academy. We feel very good about that.
Mr. Sutton?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind, I do also want you all to know that the principals here, we made contact with each of our families personally. Our principals had meetings or personal phone calls with their teachers to say which of our staff members want to teach on the online learning academy. So there was some personal connection with those teachers along the way as well.
Chairman Wise, we did the same thing for middle school. We actually were able to focus on core classes, math, science, English, social studies, writing. And we were able to take our middle school, we were able to designate and assign teachers specifically for the academy, pull teachers from schools based on the number of students that were leaving their school, and create this academy that's basically district-wide. Then we got to high school. We got to 859 kids, and all of a sudden we got with the principals and said, let's start pulling teachers from your school. Let's start trying to meet the core areas of need, biology, algebra, chemistry, calculus, agriculture, JROTC. And what we realized, the more we tried to pull teachers, we really couldn't meet the students' needs. We couldn't pull enough teachers to make that happen and keep enough teachers in the building for us to basically offer what I would call a full course catalog for the students. We talk about dual credit, AP, electives, graduation requirements, EC3. It's like we were going to basically hurt kids' opportunities if we didn't keep the academies inside the schools. So we really had to go to what I would say is more of a hybrid model, where we're asking the principals to say, we may grab a teacher and have them teach 3 in-person courses, and then have them teach an online course as well. And when you start doing that, trying to do that every day, all day, was a very tall task. So we started thinking about that AB schedule, what that would look like, to ask the teachers to do a hybrid model to meet every student's needs in every way possible that we could. And that's kind of where we got to today. So I just wanted you to know that the elementary school, middle school is different than what we're doing with the high school, because it is different. It's a different need. So I know Mr. Isaacs and Mr. Robbins are going to try to hit some of those specifics tonight. I just wanted you to understand the setup and see if you guys had any questions really on the setup part.
Mr. Sutton, on the elementary school, the 1,008, is that pretty close to the 17%? Was that 17% pretty much across the board, or how many elementary students do we have? I mean, what percentage? Do you know?
What percentage of that was the total?
Yeah.
There's about 1,100. That's hard to, I didn't figure out that data.
So it's about 10% on the elementary, you think?
Used to be about 1,000 kids a grade.
It's about 1,100 kids per grade level. I'm just trying to think. You're talking about 66,
So that would be 88, about 88,
Everybody got the math on that in their
9,000.
head?
And you got 1,000, so it'd be a little over 10% then.
Yep.
11 to 12%. I just was wondering if the 17 was consistent, or if
Based
the high
on
school
school to
changed it that
school,
much.
there were some schools had a higher number, as Ms. Morgan said, than other schools as far as who chose the online academy. It was based on the need of the students, the need of the family. A lot of them have been very specific about the immune system disorders, the medical fragility of issues within their family. They didn't want the potentially COVID coming back to their family. So some of them did honestly choose it because they felt like it was a better learning opportunity. We've already had some other families wanting to reach back into our district now because they know that we have this online academy, which I got 3 phone calls on Friday.
Excellent.
That's a good thing, that knowing that we offer this. So it's It's been good, and I feel like that our training next week on the 3rd and the 4th with our elementary and middle school will go really well. But our high school, we just could not make it a go of pulling teachers from the school. We realized we had to keep the academy intact at the individual schools.
This was based on the survey you did. This is subject to a little bit of change between now and then, right? Isn't there a cutoff date?
Certainly
Or is
is.
this pretty much in stone?
This is actually a good thing. This is after open enrollment
Yep,
last
okay.
week.
All right,
So that's a
good.
little bit
Okay.
encouraging, but you're right. Due to the fact we have people still entering our district, still enrolling, still kids changing. Ms. Corder told me just a few minutes ago that 2 kids today called and came back from online back to in-person. So technically, those numbers have already changed.
So they could go
About two.
back and forth a little bit.
By 2 to the positive of in-person, yes.
Do we
Mr.
have a cutoff date when they have to decide one way or the other?
Because that would help us. or help
31st of
you.
July.
They've got to make a decision.
We'd like for parents to decide by the 31st of July.
Well, but honestly, that can't be a hard cutoff, because if there is some issue, medical issue that arises after that, if
That's
they
right.
find out that someone has cancer or in their family, for instance, they're going
Right.
to have a compromised immune system, they might want to switch.
Case by
And,
case or
Yeah,
something.
but it has to be case by case, I would assume.
I'm hoping this doesn't I'm hoping it doesn't fluctuate past 75%. Right now, we're at, 82.3%. I'm hoping we can, at worst, be maybe 75% by the time we're done.
Why?
Maybe. I'm
Why?
sorry.
I think I know the answer, but why?
Well, I think once you start getting so many people that are, going online, once again, you have to start pulling more teachers. And the more teachers you have to pull at the elementary, middle school, it really doesn't help your percentage of, I guess, your in-class ratio of student to teacher in the building, because you're pulling teachers away from the building to teach the academy. So if you keep having to keep pulling, there's going to become a point where you just say, is it better that we go all online? But we don't want to do that.
Are we asking any teachers to do anything they don't want to do?
No, we surveyed every teacher in the district, and they all had a chance to respond on whether they wanted the online academy or the in-person. And there's been teachers, since we've assigned teachers, to ask to switch back to in-person after their initial survey, and we've allowed that to happen. So we've been very, I guess, flexible in our teacher selection, because we want to meet their needs as well. Some of them have some very serious medical concerns that have come about, and I think we've done a good job of meeting their needs along with the students.
I realize we can't do I realize we can't do in elementary schools the same thing we do in high schools and vice versa, middle schools. But are we trying to do the exact same thing at the elementary level in all schools?
Well, yes, yeah, our processes are the same.
Okay.
Absolutely. We probably brought our elementary schools closer together than they ever had. Give you an example. This morning, we started our Oregon Gillingham training, and every school was represented there today. We're all doing the same processes now. We're all speaking the same language.
I think that's critical.
If a teacher transfers from one school to the next now, the program and process are the same.
I think that's critical.
Yeah, we've gotten to that point in 3 years, but it wasn't like that 3 years ago, not even close. But we're there now, so it's a good thing.
And I'm talking about whatever procedures we put in place for coronavirus.
It's all the
We've got
same.
to do that the same from school to school.
It's all the same.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a
Our
very
reentry
big
plan
issue,
is,
very important.
our reentry plan is
Absolutely.
online. It's the same for every school. We're speaking the same language right now.
We need to see that.
And currently, you have enough volunteers for both tracks there on
For elementary and middle school, we are right where we need to be. We had to add another kindergarten teacher today because the kindergarten numbers went up significantly over the weekend.
Uh-oh.
Probably up by about 20 or 30.
Well, that's good
So,
news.
so what did go up after opening was kindergarten numbers.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. Got the phone call this morning. And,
That's good to hear.
well, numbers up, yes, good, but numbers for the online academy is what I'm saying was up.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
I thought you meant enrollment.
well, a lot of kids are enrolling, but they're choosing one way or the other right now. So,
Okay.
yeah. I think Mr. Isaac's probably got a few things here to say about the AB schedule to help us meet these. And Mr. Robbins wants to speak as well, so we're going to let Mr. Isaacs go first.
I'm gonna pull that down a little bit so that it doesn't fog that up. All right, we've met a lot and we've talked about a lot of numbers, looking at a lot of figures. But I thought the important place to start is to look back a little bit at how we changed over the last decade or so. As you look at high school, you're seeing a much different world than you did. I know definitely since I was in high school many years ago in the Hardin County school system. We had basically one option. We went through and we took the classes they told us to take, and then we moved on to where we were moving on to. I tease my math teachers now. I said, to graduate from East Hardin in 1986, you only had to take Algebra 1. I had a math teacher ask me if I was taking Algebra 2. I asked her if it was required. She said no. I informed her that I was not, and no one ever mentioned it again. I got to Georgetown College and realized what an incredibly poor decision I had made. So, over the last decade, when we focus on transition readiness and career pathways, we are truly getting to the point where nearly every student has an individual graduation plan, an individual education plan like our special needs students have had for many years. Through one-to-one scheduling, through parental involvement, through just the focus on making sure that they have options when they leave us. Kids have more choices than they've ever had before and are leaving here in better cases. As we look at the Online Learning Academy and those 859 students, we look today, those 859 students have requested 269 different classes.
Wow.
So that's the biggest difference when you look at the elementary, middle versus the high school. We have 211 different classes at Central Hardin High School coming this fall. And to make that master schedule fit is a challenge in good situations. So when you add the variable of an online learning academy, where when we take the 3 high schools together, we have 8 students together that need resource English 2, or sophomore English basically, need a resource level, 8 between us. None of the 3 of us, I think they would agree, have the ability to collapse in it, to pull that teacher out of air to teach the 2 kids or the 3 kids I got and the 2 that Mark has and 3 Tanya has. So we got to work together just to make that happen and to find all the. So the variables are what's making this so incredibly hard. And when you have to start making choices, the kids that tend to lose are that top kid and that bottom kid. Because the ones in the middle are where, they've got the most things in common. So that's what we're trying to reach out to. We've got 56 kids who've requested 12 different AP classes in the Online Learning Academy. We have 63 kids who've requested 10 different dual credit classes in the Online Learning Academy. And this does not count a single child in the early college program. Those are in a different set of, those are kids at our high schools that are not in Dan's early college that want dual credit in AP. Wow. And we've got to find a way to make that work so that those kids get what they need, and they're not losing because we're having to adapt to the programs or to the situation that's right. But for me, the biggest thing I like about the AB setup here is interventions. If we put kids in 2 classes a day for 3 hours, 3.5 hours a day, we're going to lose our ability to intervene with that at-risk kid. It causes more contact tracing and just the ability to pull those teachers out where they may or may not be. The hybrid will give us an opportunity to make sure those at-risk kids who are not achieving both online and at school have the opportunity to get face-to-face help to make sure they're successful. We're working with Chris Corder over the bus garage to make sure that we can run buses. Whenever we need to run buses, give him the information he did, and he says, I'll go out and get them. So even a child who has chosen to stay home, we can look at that Wednesday intervention time as a possibility that that family may say, if I'm just coming in to see that one teacher, they may even choose to come into campus to get that extra help if they're not making it with a virtual education. Sorry, kind of made notes as I went along. I was talking to my APs and my counselors. Co-op and intern opportunities are another thing that gets sacrificed under a 2-period day schedule. If we're rotating where we're going, so 1st and 2nd on Monday, 3rd and 4th on Tuesday, 5th and 1st on Wednesday, it just keeps rolling with a 5 scheduled day. They co-op traditionally on a 4th and 5th period. That's only going to happen 2 days a week. That's not good for my kids. That's not good for local businesses, those relationships that count on those people to be in their places. We're sacrificing a lot. So we really feel strongly like the AB hybrid gives us the opportunity to give the kids the variety that they deserve, to be able to be transition ready, and continue to keep those options open that we've worked so hard to build over the last decade. Dan's got some,
Wait, just before you go,
Okay.
explain AB in this case. A lot of ways you can do AB.
absolutely.
So what sort of AB were you thinking?
We're proposing that the A student would come on Monday and Thursday for direct instruction, face-to-face in the building. The B student would come Tuesday, Friday. Wednesday would be that intervention time where, again, every student could, I equated, for my staff, I equated to our power hour. It's the opportunity for every student, online or in person, to have access to every one of their teachers, to where they can reach out to them and get it. We can send buses to the kids who are not being successful and bring them in. In the day they're not at school, they're going to have independent work that they're expected to work on. But again, during the teacher's planning period, there would be Google Meet time for them to address both groups and make sure that if students not getting something, they can get the help they need.
But once a week, they can do that.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry.
Once a week, they're gonna get that opportunity to get that help if they need it.
At a minimum.
Yes,
At a minimum.
Right.
But they'll get all 5 classes every day.
Sorry to interrupt.
I was gonna
Okay.
say,
Okay,
Tim,
I have
think,
another question about the AB. Some of the, obviously, we've been inundated with lots of these ideas from all the resources that want to help school boards with this. And one of the things I've seen is an AB system where they're A is Monday, Tuesday, B is Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday is turnover day that includes cleaning. Now, they usually do, the ones I've seen proposed, they've done that for the younger kids, where they need to sanitize the area more. I'm assuming that there's an educational reason for the interleaved AB as opposed to just a pure health care reason for the, because there isn't a turnover day here. You're going to have one group in, and the A group on Monday, the B group on Tuesday. So if and I assume there's standard cleaning between them, but this isn't about that cleaning. This is about keeping contact and keeping educational opportunities going.
It also reduces, with you bring in half at a time,
Well,
it's
yes.
reducing the number in the classroom so that you allow for greater social distancing. Rooms can actually be, you can
Yeah.
spray down desks between classes and such. Wednesday would allow for greater cleaning because you're going to have greater flexibility to move your staff inside the building so that the custodians and other staff can go through and kind of work their way
Mr.
through the
Siegel,
building.
To answer the thing, and we had talked about that, we had talked about bringing one group in Monday, Tuesday, same students on Monday and Tuesday, but then that would mean 5 days that
Right.
they did not have that interaction with
That
the
would-
adult, and
Okay.
that was our concern. We
Okay.
felt that, it may be that teachers are having to spray a desk, but it gives us that opportunity to see those kids, to check in with them on a more consistent basis. Going 5 days without instruction is significant.
That would be my concern.
We
but
did talk about that.
I did have some parent interaction about that.
Yes.
If you're going to do AB, it seems to me 5 days is a long time.
Right.
So that would be my concern. And I think they would put I believe you'd have a hard time getting them to do the work if they didn't do it. It's better if they know they gotta come back in a day or two.
Exactly right. And this more closely mirrors a college-type environment where there's an independent
Right.
work that comes
Okay.
directly after the direct instruction. You can follow up almost immediately and get back, and you're not losing as much ground that way.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
What kind of criteria do we have to refer a kid for testing for the virus?
The way it works is initially if a student comes in and they have a fever, Cumberland Health has a test that they can immediately do at that time. Any staff member who wants a test will have access to that at any time. And so the testing is readily available, more so in our schools than what it is in the general public with our nurses.
It would seem to me that one of the advantages of having kids in school is close monitoring. If they get sick, we'll know.
I agree.
And I know that there's the possibility to pass it on to other people, but if they're in daycare, the daycares don't have the same responsibility to do something about it. So, you know.
We are
could-
very fortunate for our
So the only
partnerships.
criteria we're gonna use right now is a fever.
No, ma'am. We have, there are 5 different, I believe, as of today, there are 5 different conditions that the health department asked us to ask students for. The temperature is the one that requires the most, but we will send home information that says if you have shortness of breath, if you have, how should I say, bowel issues, which is now one of the newer things that, a newer symptom. We will educate the parents, and the reason we're waiting on that is our Lincoln Trail Health Department, we want to make sure we have the latest things that we share with them. So the temperature is the one thing we can check for very easily at the school. However, the other health conditions,
Have to be
that's going to be
reported.
self-reported.
Yeah.
But if they would like for their student to be tested, we have the facilities and the personnel to be able to do that at the school.
Okay, are we gonna just test, are we gonna check their temperature once a day?
Once a day, unless they are moving to EC3, when they change locations, they will have to have their temperature taken again.
Okay.
Or if they self-report an issue during the day.
Or if they self-report an issue, then they would go immediately.
And I'm sorry, Dawn, I know you want to ask something. Columbia Health will do the test.
Cumberland Health will do the test.
What's the turnaround time on that test?
15 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
So it is a quick response test. And again, any of our staff members can also have that. If they have a fever, then they will be sent home until they have a return from a medical personnel saying that they are safe to return to school.
Have we given any consideration to testing everybody going in?
We have offered testing to anyone who wants to have it done, but you cannot, at this point, require everyone to have the testing.
Do we have to answer to Hardin County Health Department at all since we're contracted with Cumberland?
Say that one more time.
We're contracted with Cumberland Health,
Yes.
and they, I assume, are the same caliber or greater group than Hardin County. Can't they just call a shot? Why do we have to report to Hardin County?
The Lincoln Trail Health Department,
Or
it
Lincoln Trail?
is,
I'm sorry.
it is our responsibility, and any hospital and any caregiver has to report to the Lincoln Trail Health Department because they have hired people to contact those people on a daily basis. I was just on the phone or on a Google Meet with a teacher who has tested positive. Lincoln Trail Health Department is contacting her each morning to check on symptoms to see how they are doing. It is just the one site. If everybody was doing their own, we would have no idea of the number of cases.
That's part of what the problem is now.
We would have
Too
no
many people doing
idea.
their own thing.
Yeah.
So it is a requirement that you report to the health department.
So if there's one symptom, I know you've already addressed fever, so maybe the rest are the same. And there's one symptom child has for a couple hours, you keep them home from school because of that, goes away, nothing else. Is anything, anytime you've held a child out for something, are they gonna have a doctor's note to be able to return?
They're going to have a return by their physician. And part of that could be our Cumberland Health personnel as well. You know, kids have strep throat. There are a multitude. You have ear infections with young people. So if they can say that fever was the result of something else, then they can return to school.
Okay, if a kid tests positive,
Yes,
then they're isolated,
yes,
and then their parents have to come get them immediately?
yes.
Okay. What about a staff member? If a staff member contracts the disease, do they have to use their sick leave while they're off?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The latest information we have is that if they test positive for COVID, so when a teacher has either an illness, shortness of breath, fever, anything like that, when they leave the building, the office manager and principals have been instructed that they will put that absence in the system as COVID. Now then, if it turns out to not be COVID, then they will have to use their sick days to cover that. But if they go and they're tested and it's positive, then they will not have to use their sick days for that. And then they will, when they get their release from a physician, then they will be able to come back to school. But they would not have to use their personal sick leave if it's a positive test.
Do we have any liability if somebody dies from the disease?
According to our attorneys, no, and that is also with the work of KDE, because it is very unlikely that someone working in a school has not been other places to where they could have contracted the COVID from other
What about
locations
child?
as well.
What about
Same
students?
thing, same thing.
Okay.
You have students who are out and about. When you go to the stores, you're seeing the multitude of people. So to say that this is the exact place that you contracted the illness would be very difficult.
So if a student or a teacher goes from school with a fever, they're going to be classified as COVID until they're proved different?
Not the student, just the teacher for absences. Just for the absences.
But they'll test them. They'll test them the same as they would a student right there at the school.
Correct.
So they would know in just 30 minutes whether or not they had
Correct.
I was
COVID.
going to say, because you're talking about numbers skyrocketing, they will really skyrocket then. If they're going to be
No,
classified
it is,
COVID.
no, it is only, but it will only stay as COVID once it's permanent, but once it's a confirmed case. Otherwise, it'll go back in as no reason except for sick, and then they will be responsible for using their own sick days.
And everybody understands that, like all these questions I'm answering, and you're telling me this stuff, everybody knows that. Everybody's going to do the same thing at every school.
Everybody knows this. Now, does the general public know? We have set a date of August 3rd to communicate all of this with our staff. As you know from just this conversation, there's a lot of unknowns. The CDC has come back to say that once you are free for 24 hours, you're free to return. Lincoln Trail Health Department prefers 72 hours. We are staying with the 72 hours. So when we send out the guidance, we want it to be the most up-to-date, still recognizing there's going to be changes.
Well, the CDC has lost its credibility as far as I'm concerned.
You know.
They're not putting out accurate information anymore.
Well, we are looking at, and this is what I have shared with people, we look at Lincoln Trail Health Department. I've asked our staff, please do not look to media for the numbers. Look to the Lincoln Trail Health Department, because if and when we have cases, that is the area that everybody is to report to. So I can pull that up. I can see how many, at what age range, from 0 to 9, 10 to 17, who is contracting the virus and what those numbers look like. How many are hospitalized? You know, I believe I looked a while ago and there were 14 in a 5-county area that are currently hospitalized in the Lincoln Trail Area Health Department.
But the thing that I worry about is the consistency.
Right,
Being totally consistent in how we handle things
right.
from school to school. And I don't care if it's a teacher or a cook or a custodian, we've got to handle things the same way.
Now, and I think our principals will tell you that's what we've been discussing is what does this look like? So we had a meeting with elementary principals on Wednesday, then middle school, and then high school. And these different scenarios of how many minutes they'll work per day, what to do and how to enter it into the system, whether it is COVID or not. And so, whether or not it's COVID, so we're having meetings. We have another one this Wednesday. We'll have another one next Wednesday. We have training happening for our teachers, so,
But it's just,
it is
are we
mind-boggling.
getting any guidance instructionally from the Department of Education? I mean, have they been any help in figuring all this stuff out? You all been,
They have provided us with guidance documents of reopening, but when it comes to the actual instruction, they really are leaving that, because the number, like Mr. Isaacs just shared, we have 211 different classes. Not every district is going to have those 211
Yeah,
different
yeah,
offerings. So there are many things that are left up to the
now,
district.
does the site-based council have any role in setting procedures for COVID?
They have the procedures of their handbook and things like that, such as the mask and the dress code of the mask and things like that. But when it comes to COVID, that is more of a district based on the state and our Lincoln Trail Health Department of how our district will respond to that.
Thanks for waiting, Dan, it's your turn.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, Ms. Sharon. I appreciate your all's discussion. Thank you all for letting us come and talk to you a little bit about this. And I don't, they've already kind of shared some of the info, but I know that Ms. Morgan has printed out some schedules for you all, and these were just random schedules that we printed for you all to see how difficult it is for us when we start to take a look at some of the things on continuing to provide our students with the opportunity that we're so rich in Hardin County about, that we want to continue to be able to do that, and why the AB schedule for us makes the most sense. Obviously, with EC3, it continues to add that extra layer in it. If we went with a model where students were doing one period, for instance, one model discussed first period in the morning, second period in the afternoon, what that would do for an EC3 student is put them there all day, because we do a 2-block. So now that student is there all day, they're getting, they would probably get sick of our teachers and get sick of the programs that they were excited to doing at that point. The other thing that would hurt would be our early college and academy students. So if the next day we went 4th period in the morning, 5th period in the afternoon, well, our academy students that take early college classes with ECTC and our dual credit teachers would not be able to then attend those classes, because we have to work with ECTC as that community college partner, and that's when those classes are going to be offered. Their times are set. So those kids would all be stuck. And so that then becomes an extra hindrance to this. I know that Mr. Isaacs talked about co-op. I mean, our community relationships, we've built and continue to grow those opportunities for co-op and internship. If, again, we were on a 4th and 5th period, morning and afternoon, those students normally go to co-op in the afternoon, we would then have to tell those businesses, sorry, this student cannot come work for you today. That's a bigger nightmare for a lot of those businesses that require these students, as they've probably been deemed essential in some capacity for them. So, those are the other things that we continue to look at, and why the AB schedule really looked to be a positive for us in high school. But as you all take a look at those schedules, and I just referenced them, the first 3 were all North Hardin, A, B, and C. And if you just take a look at those first 3 for North Hardin students, you can see how difficult it would be for us to try to provide those types of learning for our students if they were taking both, first period in the morning, second period in the afternoon. We have students that travel between now, not only just us, EC3 and the home high schools, but also even to John Hardin and even ECTC with the introduction of our criminal justice and residential maintenance pathways. So that adds an extra layer on top. And so student A, you see, has biology. Student B has honors biology, and then you look to student C, who has anatomy, honors history. I mean, there are all of these different things that we have to take a look at and consider into our schedule. I'll let you all just take a look at that for a second, see if that generates any questions for you all.
Pretty, pretty wide coverage of courses there.
We are opportunity rich. And so like, that's what, everyone has kind of already said before me, and that's why I think we continue to be a place where a lot of students are looking to, come to. Students continue to transfer and move into Hardin County because of being opportunity rich. But, we want to continue to offer those opportunities. And as long as we can maintain this type of schedule with an AB where our students can go to all 5 periods, then we can continue to offer those. If we weren't able to do that, then students are going to start then losing that opportunity. And then I think then that changes the face of Hardin County schools drastically. But you can quickly kind of look through it. John Hardin, I printed off A, B, and C as well. And just to start to take a look at this, you start to see a couple other students here with some AP English language options in there. You have your AP chemistry, honors geometry. Again, just the variance and the different courses that we're trying to offer. And that's why, with the AB schedule for us and our home high schools being able to handle the online learning community themselves really allows those teachers then continue to offer those classes, because one of the things we took a look at it, if we were doing the online learning academy with this, then pulling those teachers out, and some students would lose some of those options. And so those elective options then could go away when we didn't have enough teachers then to teach all of those. But with the high schools being able to kind of work together, and we've talked even today about being able to share some teachers as well. So we're continuing to be on the same page to look at options to continue to make sure that all of our students have everything that they're looking for within their school schedule for the 2021 school year. But you can see that this option, being able to then house their online learning academies at their own school, allow for us to continue to be diverse in our schedule options. And then the last options you can see with the Central Hardin A, B, and C. Again, some of our students here, you got a student here that has our automotive in the morning, dual credit English at their high school, ag power, and so on. And it just, again, our schedules are, I didn't know the numbers were what Mr. Isaacs researched today, but we continue to offer so much to our kids, which is a good thing, but we want to be able to continue to offer them even amidst the COVID-19.
Question on co-op. We've had some really good results out of co-ops, and I think, they've learned a lot, done well. How do I control a co-op student now if we go to this? You're talking about 2 days use basically instead of the day that student don't have any classes except home classes. How do I keep him, other than from refusing to work, how do I keep him from coming to work? Because those kids will come to work now.
No, they are still, that's part of this. We want those students to be able to do that co-op 5 days a week. So this schedule allows them, if they're doing co-op from 12 to 3, they would do co-op Monday through Friday. They would continue to do that. They will not only do co-op on the 2 days that they're in class, they would go
I think what
every
Mr.
day.
Wise, Mrs. Morgan, I think Mr. Wise is asking, so if that student is a
Oh,
Monday,
Wednesday.
Thursday student,
Yeah.
and then on Tuesday and Friday, that student says, well, I don't have school today.
Yeah.
Instead of working 12 to 3, can I come in at 8 and work all day? I can understand that, and of course, we're asking our business partners to stay true. They ask for that employee, in a sense, from 12 to 3, stay true to being able to offer that. We're not asking our employees to give more by taking that student on, because obviously that takes more money from them as well. We're asking our students to stay to their schedule. They're still going to have assignments that they're going to have to do on, in a sense, their off day, that they're not in person for classes. So they're still going to have work that they need to complete. So they're not, in a sense, just sitting at home sleeping in all day. They have things that they need to turn in. We've really talked about being able to stay true to our times, so that students are turning things in on time. If you have a first period class, having that turned in by the end of first period time, and so on. So our kids still have work they have to do, so they can't just then blow it off and say, I'm going to co-op all day.
How many kids do we have doing co-op?
I don't really know that true number,
It
but in the
doesn't
high
have to be
schools.
accurate, just ballpark.
I know we had somewhere between 60 and 75 just in Central Hardin last year.
Right.
Wow.
District-wide, we had rated about 210. Remember when I showed you all the sheets
Yes.
of the students?
Yeah.
We had, actually, I think, Tim, you all were close to 90 co-op students at that time. And
So is a.
Okay, so it's
Well, I know
very
Ms.
small.
Slavin's working to increase that. I mean, that's what
Yes.
she's already, started with this position this summer. She's been contacting businesses left and right, and so we're looking to grow that opportunity. I mean, obviously with the hire into that position, getting her in there, I mean, it's a big deal for us to grow that. So if we're, in a sense, at a small number of 200, we hope that maybe by the end of the year to increase that drastically, so.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the other thing about it. I mean, our students, I mean, we're in the last 4 years that we have them. We pride ourselves on getting our kids to be life ready, transition ready to be life ready. And so, by doing a schedule like this, we're asking our students, I mean, you have to know, you have to be able to navigate the world. I mean, all of us navigate the world right now, whether we're trying to, put a mask on to go into Walmart or wherever we need to go, we're asking our students to be able to navigate that as well. And we know that it's a tough situation right now, but we want them to be life ready when they do graduate high school and we put them out. So giving this type of AB schedule is very similar to what they're going to see in college already. I mean, that's, we typically have a student that goes, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and so on for college. And so we're trying to navigate that with them as well. So this just continues to prepare them for that.
I don't have any problem at all with this AB. I mean, it sounds to me like that they have worked hard on it and looked at every aspect. And the one thing I really hear too is that they're all trying to do what's best for kids and
Yes.
meet as many needs as possible. So I'm all for it.
This was not the first plan out of the box, I will
I
tell you
can,
that.
I can feel that.
How does a student get selected for, what days of the week, A or B? How's that?
Well, we've talked about that, and I think the consensus seems that we're gonna take our number of students and basically go to the alphabet, whether that's truly a K or an L or somewhere along that lines, and split it in half. Our goal in doing that is, we know that typically you have same last name households. We may have some that differ, and we're gonna take those into consideration. But our hope is to keep households the same. So if we have, 2 students are in high school together, then they should be attending the school the same day.
That makes sense.
However, we did mention that some households may not
Right.
want that situation. They may not want a freshman home with a senior without a parent being there. There might be some issues, and those parents would contact the schools to say, it's best if we send one on a Monday, Thursday, and another one on Tuesday, Friday. But they will take care of those individual situations at the school level.
How soon you gonna know that?
As soon as we move forward with this, the 31st, kind of being our, in a sense, cutoff day for that, then, we're ready, our councils are ready to put the work in, and once the decision is finally made so that we can then start rolling, because there's a lot of things to do within the schedule process. The master schedule is a beast.
We already
So-
have some students are going to be in those, but we have some that have to choose, right? So just,
Right.
the sooner we get that done, the better.
Well, we're actually hoping we think one of the draws of the AB is we think we can take some of those kids back.
I think you can too.
And that's a strong hope in getting this word out as soon as we can, is that some of the kids will opt for in-school.
I think you can too.
face-to-face.
Yep.
Yeah, what Mr. Isaacs was saying is he hopes that that 859 number will drop once students hear of our plan for this, and we think that, students will choose the in-person because they see the great opportunity, they can still have all their classes, and so on. And so we're hoping that number starts to drop.
Yep.
So if we choose to do this, which, I would say more than likely we are, when would be the dropout? If things change, things improve, do we go until winter holiday break or next half of the school year? Where would the change go back?
Well, the one thing we said is the Online Learning Academy, we are committing to doing that for a year. Now, please know that each trimester, depending on the health of our district, we will then regroup, but we will have to put a timeline on that. So we figure around November is when the second trimester, so around the middle of October, we're going to have to ask families, do you plan to continue with the Online Learning Academy, or do you plan to come back to in-person instruction?
right.
And same thing for in-person instruction. Is this working for you and your family with the given situation? So at each trimester, we will have to reevaluate this, but we do anticipate having the Online Learning Academy for the 2021 school year. But at each trimester, students will have to recommit to what it is they're doing.
So all three schools now are on the same, or four, sorry. All four are on the same. Five.
Mr. King's back there, Dr. King.
All five are working on this trimester
Yes,
year.
yes.
So if a student switches schools, he's not losing anything in Hardin County. He still can pick up where he is,
Yes.
or she, okay. All right.
Are all the middle schools on trimesters?
They are not. Ms. Johnson asked about the schools being on trimesters, and I believe we had one, and we have requested that they change to be able to go to the quarters, because that fit in well with the other middle schools, because for the Online Learning Academy, that was important for everybody to be on the same schedule.
Yeah, and it goes the same for elementary and middle, so they go on 9-week grading periods. They'll have the option in the 9 weeks to decide if they want to move back and forth between the online and the in-person.
So if we have 10 students out there that needs online help, are the principals sharing a teacher to help them? Is that the way it's going to
Yes.
be done now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. They may come from 5 different schools, but one teacher has all of them.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
I think that is
We're trying to
about
work.
as useful as we can use
Yeah.
a
Yes.
teacher. I mean,
Now, and please know that even today, we've been meeting and discussing middle school. We may have a situation to where we actually have a middle school teacher who may teach 4 periods in-person instruction, but we may need them to teach 2 periods online instruction, just to meet the different needs that we have. I think it's also, Mr. Wright wanted to make sure we communicated this, that so tonight is not a vote, but just your all's permission to continue to move forward with this, get our counselors working. But tomorrow at noon, we would have a YouTube for our parents. When we leave here tonight, our principals have a 1 call to send out to their parents. And then tomorrow at noon, we will do YouTube Live to where parents can send in questions to us, and we will answer those, because we know this is new, we know this is different, but we want our families to be able to ask questions throughout this process. So tomorrow we have set that up at noon for families to be able to do it, figuring if they could join us for 30 minutes to an hour during their lunchtime. We would value their input and questions. They can go ahead and start sending those questions to Mr. Wright, so that we can have those for tomorrow, because we know there's a lot of questions out there.
After the board endorses this plan, Ms. Morgan, we will post the details, some of the details of this plan on our website, and then we will actually have a Google form or a form where they can already go ahead and submit their question that they have about the plan. They can go ahead and submit that online. And so when the board or when the principals meet tomorrow to do this Q&A session on YouTube, we will already have some questions built in, and so we can start and use our time effectively. We're going to go from noon to about 1, and we'll try to get the community's answers or questions answered at that time.
Now, you're just talking about this high school plan, AB high
Yes,
school
ma'am.
plan.
Yes, ma'am. I think we'll probably do something more ornate after the August 3rd plan, after we reveal the bigger plan on August 3rd. We'll probably, and I think Mrs. Morgan and I have spoken with this briefly, but we may, have department by department, sit down with Mr. Sutton on how instruction will look, with Mr. Porter on how transportation will look, and so on and so forth.
So what you're looking for today is the sense of the board that we would vote for this if we were able to, or are we interested in moving forward, or should we stop
Right.
and do something else? Is that what
Right.
you're looking
And
for?
one thing I have learned is not to get your heels set in. or we wouldn't be here on this one. But I think it's important that we give the families the opportunity, because they may present us with some questions that we say, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And so it's important to get the families' feedback. I know I sent you all an informational, and I knew you had lots of questions, so we wanted to do that in an open meeting so that everyone could hear this conversation, to hear your all's concerns as you are elected to answer those questions. We wanted that opportunity for everyone to have this discussion, and from you to hear from the principals.
Well, I really don't want to make a bad decision. You know, we got to keep the kid first, but parents are telling me that they would like for these kids, and y'all got numbers to show that, to go back to school. You know, they want it to be safe.
Right.
I said, you know, we can't guarantee everything, but
Yeah.
we would like for it to say we could guarantee safety. And but I think the general consensus out there is they want the students back in school, because they cannot teach like the teachers can. They know that now.
Yes, but you know what, Charlie, they're not having to make the decision.
No,
That could maybe cost the kid's life.
Yeah,
You know, it's
right.
easy to say that if you don't have to live with something for the rest of
It's
your life.
easy for us to say, yeah, we'd like for them to go back to school, or we're putting them back in school, and then first thing happens, one gets sick and we're in the lawsuit. Y'all are guilty, you
Well,
send them back to
lawsuit's
school.
least of my worries.
You know, that's
Well, but that.
something we face every day.
Right, but, you know, that's where we continue to look at the numbers. We, you know, the governor asked today that no one start, so you all were ahead of the game. You postponed school until August 24th to give us these extra weeks to prepare for what it looks like.
We're gonna need
I
it.
can assure you, we are needing those days.
Yeah.
We are working to train our custodians. We have to train our substitute teachers. You know, we plan to have a training of our substitutes of
Good.
what it looks like to clean in between classes. What
Good.
does it look like when a student says they don't feel well? So we have a lot of things that we are working on. And I realize right now parents are seeing an uptick in the number of confirmed cases. I ask that you just hold tight to see what's going to happen around, you know, the August 17th date. I think giving us a few weeks of people who went on vacations to other places to get back and settle in, I believe we will have a much more realistic what school can or cannot be around the week of August 17th. I think that's important for our families to know. But everyone needs to know that we have multiple people working for the best interest of our students. And we too want them back in person, but it's important that we have them back in person safely, and that includes our staff and their families. So it is certainly not an easy task.
I would like to say personally, thank you for all the work you did putting this together. I know this isn't the first draft, probably not the second draft. Plenty of work that went into this. I'm excited to see this and what the opportunities this holds for our kids. A lot
Heck,
of
we may
work.
like it so well, we just keep it from now on.
Well, you mentioned something.
Slow down, Kay.
I think both of you, Tim, I think you mentioned it too. This actually goes in that career path too, where you're looking at, this is getting you ready for college too. So you're a little bit on your own, a little independence here, and a little bit of accountability on your own. But we're going to help you get there, and I think both of those hand in hand. We can do this. But thank you again for all the hard work. I'm excited about this.
So,
I know we're
Mr.
not there
Sutton,
yet. But.
if you don't mind, I am going to ask that you put up the slide of the different pros that we looked at for high school going to an AB schedule.
Why?
Because I'm sure some of the families who are looking at this going, well, could we do the same thing for middle and elementary schools?
And not really.
And quite honestly, no, not really. You know that middle school students need a lot more assistance. They are less independent, and then when you get to elementary, they are even less independent. So what we have heard from families is an elementary schedule, AB schedule, is just a very difficult thing for families to be able to take care of. So I'm going to ask Mr. Sutton. Mr. Wright?
Well, I would just say, we'll post this on our website this evening as well. As soon as you all get through, we'll post this, but it's good for Mr. Sutton to go through it.
Right. So we have the high school, we've talked about most of these, but if you don't mind, Greg, just to go down to the middle schools
Sure.
of why we have chosen what we have chosen for our middle and elementary students.
I guess one thing I want you to look at first is number 5, there at the bottom. If y'all could read that with me. Middle school students do not perform well in unsupervised situations. The middle school students had the most unsuccessful student participation rate during the spring NTI period. So I want you to understand this was a data-driven decision. Somebody were to ask you, hey, why might this not work for middle schools? Well, our data showed us that a lot of those
They've
schools-
never had a middle school kid then.
a lot of those students, you know, the digital platforms we put in front of them, they didn't have the teacher pushing them every day in in-person instruction. Our data showed us it wasn't best for middle school students to be away from a teacher. So number 5 right there said a lot for us. Look at number 3 there is critical. Tim talked about the IEP for our students. We also have the ILPs, individual learning plans, development and exploration classes lead to better understanding of career pathways. Something we're doing now with our one-on-one scheduling with our high schools at the middle school level. This is critical, and kids need that exploration time to see what they like. This is when we're starting to develop these foundations on their pathway decisions for high school. And if they're at home, they're not going to get that exploration time. This is critical for us to have them in a school building. And you look at number 2, we're still building foundational skills. A lot of seniors, they have an idea of what pathway they're taking, what career they want to explore, college, military. So with these middle school kids, they don't. And we're still building those skills, the core learning opportunities, math, science, English, social studies. Just like Mr. Riley said, that if they don't have that foundation of math, they're not going to be successful when they go into high school. 2 days a week is not going to be enough instruction for them in an AB schedule at the middle school level. That's just a few things that we really talked hard about.
Yeah.
And elementary is very similar, so critical with foundational skills. The online learning platforms are tough for a kid to navigate through some of the technology that we have. What we expect out of a senior, it's hard for a 5- and 6-year-old to do. To be honest with you, something we really looked hard at. The child care concerns for families, which we got a lot of feedback on. I need child care. A senior in high school doesn't really need child care. They don't need that type of supervision. They're a little more independent. So we realized an AB schedule can work for a junior or senior, which for a 5-year-old it may not be beneficial to the kid or the family.
I have a question, Mr.
Sure.
Sutton, if you're
Would
done.
you go
For a
back?
second.
I'm
Can I ask
sorry.
a question?
Yeah,
Before I forget it.
okay, I understand.
I was thinking, are there opportunities here for staff that we have not been faced before to actually grow themselves in how they provide these skills, or they learn new skills on developing and how they're teaching or facilitating that? This might be an opportunity for them they never had before.
We had over 500 teachers get with either tech fellows in our building last year in March, actually probably more early April, and with Brandy New, and learned some digital platforms or skills they didn't have going into the NTI period.
Yep.
Now we're going to take that a step further. Now we're actually breaking down a specific school day schedule. That's what I want you to understand about the structure that parents asked of us. They said, if we go to an online academy, we want a structured day. So you're going to see kids in an online academy from 8 to 3. They're going to have a class from 8 to 9:15, 9:15 to 10:15. They're going to have a lunch break. It's going to be that structured, and they're going to be meeting with teachers online. We're looking at anatomy of a lesson to say how much direct instruction do you receive, how much independent practice do you receive. It's going to be very specific. So the teachers next Tuesday and Wednesday are meeting with Brandy. We're doing a very specific 2-day training strictly for the elementary and middle school teachers that are doing the online academy. It's going to be very specific how we implement our instruction. So last year we kind of put, I don't know how you want to say it, I guess we just kind of built the plane as we were flying it, and now we feel like we got the plane together, and it's ready to take off a little better. So that's a lot of teachers learned a lot of new things. So it's been a positive, it was a blessing in disguise in a sense.
The one thing Ms. New will be working on is how to connect some classes together, so if we
I
could
wondered
do
about
some
that.
science and math together instead of two separate assignments, or if we could put social studies and writing together and reading, how can we combine some of those for best practices so that students aren't saying, oh my goodness, I have 5 periods a day, I have 5 different assignments. Really trying to do more of that collaboration between those classes, so that's what the training will look like. Then
It's gonna
on,
force our teachers to work together as well.
Yes.
It's gonna force collaboration.
Right,
It's
it will.
in the
That's
Has
good.
to,
yes.
yeah.
That's
And
why-
then on August 13th, we will have representatives to include the principal and at least 2. Tim's asking if he can send 3 or teachers. We will be bringing them in to do training for them to take back to their school of what lesson plans will look like. So if we do have to go to NTI, our teachers are prepared for that this year. So we do not want them building the plane as they fly it. We want them knowing exactly what's expected of them. So we'll have their days lined out, and we can share that with the parents. We can share that with the teachers.
But we can prepare for that this year. Last year, we had to build the plans we were flying. We never think anything. I've been in this education business my 25th year. Never thought this would ever happen. You don't have a plan for something that hadn't happened for 25 years. And so now, we know it's a reality. We know it very easily could happen again, so we're planning ahead this time. So it feels good to be able to plan ahead.
We learned a lot in 6 months, didn't we?
We learned a lot.
I'd like to see the high school list again, please.
Sure.
I didn't get to read all of it.
And Chairman, while they're doing that, the third thing on our agenda is the approval of the amendments to the 2021 calendar. We do not have, I put that on there as just in case, and we are not going to need that, so we can delete that from the agenda.
Okay.
Woo-hoo!
No, I just wanted to see what they all were.
You have this, Ms. Sharon.
Oh, I do?
In
Yes,
email.
ma'am.
Oh,
So
okay.
that basically was gonna try to amend it to where the 3 makeup days would be used in advance in front.
Yes,
Right.
we can trade out those days without changing the calendar. It was going to complicate a lot of things for our classified staff if we changed it. So leaving it the same, our principals will work with teachers to make sure that they're working those days either at the beginning or at the end of the year.
So the academy days, should we have inclement weather, the academy days are gonna go on and the other days will be
NTI.
made up?
They will be NTI
NTI.
days. We will not add them to the end of the school year. They will immediately be NTI.
Because we're prepared for that.
Yes.
Well, we can only do 10 though, right?
No, sir, they are unlimited number of
Unlimited?
NTI days.
Golly.
Let's hope we don't go there.
Yes,
I have a clarification. I've got a couple questions from parents who are also teachers in our system concerning the possibility that, and I know the answer to this because I heard the governor say it, so concerning the possibility that they would be told they must quarantine. They aren't sick, but they must quarantine.
yes,
But the governor authorized emergency COVID leave for that. They do not
Yes.
use sick leave for that.
Correct.
Is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yes,
but
and that's
I've
what
had
we
two
were
people
saying
question.
earlier. We would put it in as COVID related, and then it will be their responsibility to show us through proof. It's not, hey, I decided to quarantine. It is through a statement through the Lincoln Trail Health Department that they have been told to quarantine. And at that point, we would then
Yeah, so long
not
as they
count their
are
sick
being
days.
required to quarantine, it's not sick time.
Correct.
It's paid through the state augmented emergency system that they
Yes, sir.
authorized for this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
If we're on NTI, which hopefully we're not, and somebody needs to quarantine but they're not sick, I assume they could go ahead and work
Yes,
through the
and
NTI?
and we have guidelines that we shared with our principals the other day. We have, if you're asymptomatic, or if you're symptomatic, what that looks like for you. So we have really spent a great deal of time going through each of these scenarios and what it means for all the different jobs we have in Hardin County.
Okay,
Did we get the direction we needed? Did we give the direction we needed?
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think we move ahead.
Go forth is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Go for it.
See what happens, till the governor tells us different.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wright, I just want to make sure, was there anything else?
Governor,
Thank
be
you.
taking notes from us, Ben.
I see.
Thank you all for what you do.
Thanks to
Thank you
our,
very much.
Thank you all so
thanks to you and
much.
your counselors for all your hard work. You are appreciated.
We need executive session?
No, sir.
No executive session?
Then we need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to
How
adjourn.
quick was that?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Y'all have a safe ride home.